The last time I came here, it was with my son in September 2022. We came to weed the fields. It was the day before he died, just before the war with the Tajiks started. I haven't been back here since.
Daniel Talyabek lives in the Ferghana Valley, on the border between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. In 2022, violent clashes between the two countries broke out in his village. His son, who had joined the Kyrgyz army, died in the fighting, killed because of an increasingly coveted resource in this region: water. In the valley, Tajiks and Kyrgyz fight over territory in order to control rivers and reservoirs. Every year, dozens of people lose their lives in these border disputes, like Daniel's son.
You see this land? It used to be all ours. The Tajiks took it from us. They said there wasn't enough water on their side, but this river belonged to us. Our soldiers used to be positioned just above this mountain.
The Ferghana Valley is a green oasis in the middle of dry grasslands. Land that's divided between Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. 13 million people live here. That's 20% of the population of Central Asia. It's also a crucial place for intensive agriculture, meaning that the management, distribution, and control of water has become a source of conflict. The Batken region in southern Kyrgyzstan is regularly a hotspot for tensions with neighbouring Tajikistan. Over the past decade, there have been several clashes between the two countries. In April 2021, what began as a neighbourhood fight over a well turned into a 3-day armed conflict. Soldiers from both sides faced off. The whole region was on high alert. Around 40 people died until a fragile ceasefire was found. A year later, though, the turf wars resumed. This time, dozens of people were killed, many of them civilians. Some 137,000 people fled the region. In Daniel Talyabek's village in Kyrgyzstan, more than 100 homes were attacked.
This house was burned down by the Tajiks. They looted it.
Daniel and his wife Rakima only returned to their home 2 years after the death of their son.
You can still see the shrapnel. Bullets struck the door here. We built this house ourselves with our own hands. It's shameful that they wanted to destroy it, but we have to carry on living. It's just how it is.
Today, the fighting has stopped, but Daniel knows that peace is fragile.
They want to take our land, attack civilians. They want our resources, our water. But there's not enough here anymore.
Since the last water war in 2022, Kyrgyz authorities have stepped up military presence in the Ferghana Valley in order to keep control of its borders and its rivers. The Kyrgyz army has deployed boots on the ground and sent a special unit just to protect water sources.
Here we are in the general office of the border guards. You can see a border marker here. It's the symbol of our unity.
Colonel Nurbek Tyagembayev has served for 12 years in the Ferghana Valley. He knows the region inside out and the importance of military presence in areas where water is particularly coveted and where journalists are not allowed to access.
We patrol on foot, checking and verifying the perimeter. Normally, the protection of water sources does not fall within our remit, but we do it all the same. Because borders are poorly demarcated, conflicts can arise.
Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan share a 1,000-kilometer-long border, but the two former Soviet republics do not agree on where that line sits. 33 years after their independence, around 100 kilometers remain controversial, especially around the Ferghana Valley.
This is the Ferghana Valley. The territory covers the eastern part of Kyrgyzstan on the right, the central part of Uzbekistan in the center, and the western part of Tajikistan down south.
The particularity of this valley, and one of the reasons behind the tensions, is the existence of enclaves, pockets of land that belong to Tajikistan, for example, but sit right in the middle of Kyrgyz territory. In these areas, the sharing of water is a source of contention.
During the Soviet era, borders were not clearly demarcated, and so the Ferghana Valley ended up being divided into numerous enclaves. For example, here you have a Tajik enclave in Kyrgyzstan. At that time, the distribution of energy and water in the region worked well, because there was a single political system. But now that the countries have become independent, there are problems because they have their own interests. They have to find common ground and negotiate.
These negotiations are becoming more complicated as water becomes increasingly scarce. Climate change has long ago reached Central Asia. The Ferghana Valley is surrounded by numerous glaciers that feed its reservoirs. But as temperatures rise, they are melting faster and faster. According to research, the region is losing billions of cubic meters of water every year.
Let's go here.
These academics specialize in water management in Kyrgyzstan.
Look at the river. The level's dropped 40 centimeters. It's because it's harvest season. Everyone needs water.
Today, they've come to check the water levels in this river, which flows straight down from a glacier and feeds into the valley.
Dastan, take a photo of the volume of water so we can compare it with the amount this summer.
Take it over there.
Yes, where the rock is, so we can see the difference in levels.
Intensive farming in the region is heavily reliant on water. With poor water management and the effects of global warming, fears of shortages have become imminent.
With rising temperatures, the Central Asian glaciers that feed the rivers will have completely disappeared in 30 to 40 years' time, causing a major water shortage. All over the world, there are wars for access to water and land. In the 21st century, we should make sure that we don't waste this resource.
Increasing water scarcity in the Ferghana Valley is forcing more and more people to leave the region. Thousands are migrating to big cities in search of a better life. In this town on the outskirts of Bishkek, the Kyrgyz capital, 1/3 of the inhabitants are climate refugees.
We're in the center of Zanizer, home to 13,000 people. Most of them come from the Batken region in the Ferghana Valley. They've come here because of rising temperatures and water scarcity. This has been an ongoing phenomenon for the last 20 to 25 years.
Imanali Primanov was one of the first to settle in the town. The farmer is also from Batken, where most of the water conflicts take place. He chose to move here 10 years ago with his wife and children, as it had become impossible for him to make a living from his land.
We left Batken because it was getting hotter and we had less water. Our ancestors always shared this land and its water with their neighbors. But now there are more and more conflicts. The most recent one with Tajikistan was so serious that the Kyrgyz government was forced to relocate people. They were brought here by car and spread around the villages.
Far from the Ferghana Valley, Imanali's living conditions have improved.
We should add more water here. It's a bit dry.
On this land, his yields are excellent.
There's never enough water in the valley. For example, before, I could only harvest some of my vegetables once a year. Here, I harvest them 3 times.
Imanali can't imagine returning to the land of his ancestors.
There's plenty of water here. And when there's enough water and you do a bit of work, your life can change. Since we arrived here, our lives have changed.
By 2050, scientists estimate that nearly 6 billion people will be living in water-stressed conditions. Central Asia is already shaping up to be one of the worst affected regions, raising fears of new water wars in the Ferghana Valley.